So we'll start. So welcome, guys, and I hope the last trading week was a good one. It was a successful one for a lot of us. Um, so we'll start with some of the developing stories in the financial market this week. Going into this week, some of the financial stories we've been seeing from online, from different news sources, from Bloomberg, from CNBC, you know, a whole lot. And one of those stories, we start with the macro story from the United States about Jerome Powell, being threatened again, something that is seen as a political pretest under construction of the new Federal Reserve Washington complex, which is something worrisome for institutions, for investors, for traders around the world. So this seems to affect the United States because it seems to threaten the independence of the Federal Reserve. And this is one of the reasons, or the major reason, we have been seeing a little bit of weakness from the United States this morning. So that news, is a negative one. Jerome Powell released that on the Federal Reserve website, social media handles during the weekend. So it's a negative one for the United States dollar, and that is actually, causing, flows out of the United States because this seems to, be a threat on the Federal Reserve independence. But regardless, we still have the United States dollar, being, a little bit strong for what we can see from a macro outlook. The United States being one of the strongest currency after the AUD. But this story now, a whole lot of factors contribute to what affects the strength of the currency, not just economic data, but also geopolitical tensions, all right? Political stories, macro stories, this can also, cause flow into a currency or flow out of the currency. That is strengthening the currency or weakening of the currency. Another point, again, in terms of the macro story that has been on the internet for almost 2 to 3 weeks now, is the protest in Iran. All right, that is another story to keep an eye on, the protest in Iran, because that has a whole lot of trading teams to give us, not just in terms of USD or safe haven flows, which can also impact gold. Gold is also impact, is being threatened this morning still because of the Federal Reserve issue, all right, the trend of Donald Trump on Jerome Powell, simply because of his not bowing down to cut interest rates. But for Iran, also, if we see heightening political tension, let's say foreign powers like the United States moving into Iran to interfere, which the United States has given them strong warning that if the killings of protesters continues, that the United States has no option than to step in to come and intervene. And if that happens, I think we may see a diversion of, the Jerome Powell macro team dying out, and institutions are maybe focusing on that story, which possibly for me, in my own opinion, I would want to look at other safe haven currencies other than the United States dollar because of the Jerome Powell macro team. Or unless that dies out, maybe we see, some tweets, some news that is maybe maybe debunking, that particular issue. But this one, Jerome Powell came out himself to announce that particular thing, that he was subpoenaed by the Department of Justice. So this is not he. This is him coming out to say so. So I don't think that is something to keep by the side. It's a major story, but the story from Iran can possibly change that particular narrative and also bring back strength into the United States dollar this week. So that is the story that is also flowing to impact gold. So, and one asset class to keep an eye on, considering the Iran story, is also crude oil. Now we are not seeing anything much, and nothing is expected, to drive crude oil prices from that particular protest, unless we begin to see, production, being affected, supply of crude oil being affected, anything that is going to affect the supply chain of oil, or maybe a blockade of routes, which I don't think the protesters have the ability to do that. Like, all right, like the Strait of Hormuz, I don't think the protesters have the ability to do that. But if maybe protesters begin to move into refineries to halt production and cut supply, I think that is one thing we'll actually be looking at for that is going to impact the price of crude oil. So, and gold also being strengthened, and we understand how commodity currencies react when it comes to, macro themes like this, and when a particular commodity is pushing to the upside massively or pushing to the downside massively. Commodity currencies perform well, and we know the relationship between gold and Australian dollar, and that's why we can see the Australian dollar has been moving, massively to the upside, against some of its peers. We can see from our scorecard here. So we can see this is a scorecard of important macro data that tells us the gauge and the strength of currency. So you can see AUD being ranked first, USD, GBP, third. So the way I do this, I rank the strongest currency and the weakest currency to get a divergence in price. So you could see AUD, USD, and then Swiss NZD. So I can decide to maybe take the first three, AUD, USD, and GBP, as bullish, and the last three as my bearish currencies. So, and we'll just narrow down our technical analysis around these 6 currencies. So we'll look at AUD CAD, AUD CHF, and AUD NZD, all to the upside. So let's look at some technical levels and and structures we expect that it's going to unfold with our AUD CAD. So the first high is AUD CAD. So if we look at AUD CAD, based on my own personal perspective or technical analysis, which I use, wave analysis. So I see AUD CAD has given us more push to the upside, potentially taking away this high. So here, it seems we have gotten a 5-wave. We are potentially going to get a 5-wave structure: impulse, correction, and then impulse. All right. So any corrective structure, tiny corrective structure on the 1 hour or a pullback, I would see that as an opportunity to further push to the upside, taking away this high. All right. And I expect price to at least tap around 0.93600 levels before we begin to look for some other moves in the market. All right. Unless the macro dynamics changes, or maybe sentiment, maybe in terms of the United States moving into Iran, that could cause some safe haven flows and move liquidity out of risk currencies like AUD, NZD, and Canadian dollar. Regardless of which one is weak or which one is strong, we are going to see heavy pressure on these currencies. So aside from data and your technical strategy, it's always good to keep your eyes on the macro story, because it has a lot to tell you of what is potentially going to happen in the next hours, next days, next week, next month, and all of that. So keep your eyes on that and look at emerging stories. It's going to really help you. Okay. So after AUD CAD, we are going to be looking at AUD Swiss. So you could see how these currencies have been performing. You can see the direction, the flow, following that story to the upside. So you can see it. And for AUD Swiss as well, if we go to the 1 hour to see a more clearer structure of AUD Swiss. So for AUD Swiss, price has the potential of pushing to the upside from current levels. But I prefer to see AUD Swiss take away this low. Maybe if we could see price pushing down to the downside under this low, I could begin to look for a buy setup to push price to the upside, taking away this high at least above 0.53800 levels. Okay. And the next one we have on our list is AUD and ZD, right? Good. So we can also see that unfolding. So for AUD and ZD, I'm also anticipating a potential 5-wave structure in advance, an impulse, a correction, an impulse, and then any corrective structure probably taking away this low and this low. We could see price pushing to the upside to take away this high above 1.17 000 level. All right, that is what I anticipate for AUD SZD. So this week, all right, I'm anticipating price to give me a pullback, impulse, correction, impulse, and then I can look for a buy setup to the upside. Okay. And now we are done with AUD against the weak currencies. So if we go back to our macro Excel sheet, we have the USD against the Canadian dollar and USD CHF and NZD. So now we're also going to share our technical story, our technical setup and everything concerning USD. But one advice I would give is for us to be very careful with the United States dollar this week. That's why I began with telling you the macro story from the point of Federal Reserve, you know, Trump and the Department of Justice sending the subpoena to Jerome Powell, which threatens the independence of the Federal Reserve, because the central bank of every nation is meant to have its independence to give its monetary policy based on its assessment of the economy. But when that is influenced, because of politics, investors can no longer trust that particular economy. That's why when you talk about safe haven currencies, why investors always move to the United States or prefer the United States, Japan, and Switzerland is because of how sound, their their monetary side of government is, the independence, the stability, and everything. Investors see these economies as safe. So anything that threatens that independence is going to cause investors, to panic and probably begin to, move flows out of that particular economy. So, for the sake of the webinar, we're also contributing a USD card to the upside, USD screws to the upside, and NZD dollar to the downside. All right. So let's start with the United States dollar against Canadian dollar. All right, so we're on 1 hour time frame. All right, so with the macro story changing from last week, so it's always good to follow our Telegram handles, because last week I remember, talking about United States dollar and Canadian dollar giving us a pullback and a downside, but the macro story changed. And so if you are following our Telegram group, follow all our social media handles. I'm going to be dropping the link on sharing the bulk. We're going to be doing a bulk WhatsApp message to all our clients, at Global Capital Markets. And the Telegram channel is going to be there. Join our Telegram channel and also follow all our social media handles. It's very important, all right? Because this helps you to be on the right side of the markets, keeping you aware of macro stories and everything surrounding the financial market. It's very important, all right? So for USD card, any corrective structure, this is probably going to take time. All right. I'm not interested in the sell setup, but if you want to go for it, you can still go for it. But any corrective structure to the downside, where I'm going to be, anticipating push to the upside. That is my view based on the macro story and based on my technical perspective. But this is also a tradable opportunity if you understand that with your own technical system, all right, price is expected to maybe correct a bit, because price doesn't move in a straight line. If we are going to have let's say this downtrend, you could see that price is moving in impulse correction to pull back, to push up, push down, pull back up, push down, pull back up, push down, and now we are heading to the upside. So price doesn't move in a straight line. It's always good to wait for pullback, wait for corrective structures before you can actually scale again. All right. So for USD card, expect a corrective structure to the downside. So if you can trade that, that is also fine and good. And then, we expect price to continue moving to the upside again. So the next on our watch list after USD card is USD Swiss. All right. So for USD Swiss, I'm also anticipating same market scenario, same technical scenario with USD card. So any corrective structure as well. All right. We could be expecting price to push it upside, taking away these current highs. So next on our watch list is NZD USD. So NZD USD price has been pushing to the downside since as of last week. We have been seeing a massive push to the downside. So for now, price is expected to give us a corrective structure here. Any pullback, something similar to this, we should be anticipating price to push down again. So we're anticipating a corrective structure or a pullback, something for price to give us something similar to what has happened here, and then we can anticipate price to push the downside again for NZD USD. Okay. So if we go back to our watch list again, we are going to be seeing on our next this is GBP card, GBP Chef, and GBP NZD. So let's look at GBP card, GBP Swiss, and GBP New Zealand, the Kiwi dollar to the upside. Let's see what the technical uh, setup looks like. So the first is GBP card. And we have been seeing massive push up in GBP card. So you could see fundamentals is what gives you the direction, the bias. So when you understand the fundamental story, knowledge and education in the market gives you clarity. And that is what, we are trying to help traders here at Global Capital Market, not just offering you brokerage services, but offering you extra more. All right. So you could see that fundamentals gives you clarity. It tells you the direction of the markets, and then your technicals is just for timing, for you to come and time the market and know probably when to enter. All right. And for GBP card, I think it's quite late if you are coming into the party now. So, but any little pullback, maybe on the lower time frames, 15 minutes and thereabout, you can scale in, because here, what I can see here is price giving an impulse, a correction, an impulse, a correction here, and then an impulse again. So people who understand the wave analysis will understand that this seems to be an expanding triangle, what we call an expanding triangle. Impulse, price goes up, takes away this high. Impulse goes down, takes away this low. Impulse slightly takes away the high again, and impulse takes away the low. So it seems to be an expanding triangle here. Something similar to it, but this is a different corrective structure. Both of them are pullbacks, all right? Just price trying to take some breaths before it can push back to the upside again. So this degree of the wave is almost completed, but there's still opportunity here. If you can see any pullback, you can still jump in, into the market and right there to the upside. Okay, so that is it. And the next currency pair here is GBP Swiss. All right. So for GBP Swiss, again, GBP Swiss is almost ready, and where I can see more opportunity, compared to GBP gas. So for GBP Swiss, any corrective structure or pullback is an opportunity to, push the upside. Taking away these at least above 1.07600 levels. Okay. So on the last on my watch list is GBP NZD. So let's open GBP NZD. And we can see GBP NZD here. GBP NZD is positioned to the upside. So for GBP NZD, any push to the downside, taking away this low and potentially this low, is an opportunity to push back to the upside. So I'll be looking for buy setups under this low. All right, under this low, I'm looking for buy setups. To take away this high above 2.34500 level. All right, and that is all I have. For this week. The few currencies or few instruments I'm looking at. All right, for gold, I will go to gold. Like I said, gold is driven by the macro stories, right now, not actually because of data, but because of the macro stories. Number one is the independence of the Fed. And number two is the protests and stories from Iran, from the Middle East, all right? So if you look at gold, so for gold, any pullback for now is always an opportunity to buy. All right, that is what we can see from the macro story from technical point of view. That any pullback now is an opportunity to buy. For the fact that these stories continue, one thing about the financial market is that the financial market, the world will always give us, one story or the other in any part of the world, and which is going to be an opportunity for every trader to make money. It's all about being aware of what is happening, and then you can actually take advantage of that. All right. So so that is it. That is it from me, this week. If anybody have any question regarding all we have discussed, so please you can raise your hand, and then I will allow you to unmute yourself, and then you can ask your questions, please. Okay? Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So if anybody has a question, so you can just raise your hand, and then I will I will inform you so you can unmute yourself and ask your question regarding what we have discussed. And if you have any other pair, anything, all right, the floor is open. So let's discuss and understand your own point of view because trading is a very, very, very boring business. So if you don't communicate, it becomes a problem, all right? Because you begin to have a kind of a cloud memory. It's going to cloud your judgment. But when you discuss, you're able to communicate with like minded traders, you begin to see, you know, another perspective and clear understanding about that particular thing you're seeing. This chart now, if you bring this chart, you will see if I bring 10 traders here, each and every one of us is going to have a sort of a different perspective of what he or she thinks is going to happen in the markets. All right. So it's always good to communicate, and then we'll actually see, what many of us agree on. All right. Because definitely some of us will agree on buy or sell, but when we come together to discuss it, we see what a good number of us, sorry, excuse me, a good number of us agree on that particular instrument. And this gives you confidence and clarity. And the more you ask questions, you learn more. So please, the floor is open now. You can ask your questions. So at least we'll do that for the next 10, 15 minutes. But let's say there's no question, then we can end the session. Hello, hello. Okay. So in the absence of no question, let's say the other person has a
So
question. In the
I
absence
think
of
someone is asking. Okay, the person is writing me. I think this person is in Enugu saying how can he reach out to the office?
okay,
Yeah, please
okay,
just let them know on the call that also this meeting is coming from Godo Capital Market, Enugu State, Nigeria office.
okay, wonderful. If you want to reach to us or visit us in the office, our office is at number 56 Mbanefo Street, New Haven. We're just behind the popular restaurant and fast food Utachiosa. So that's where our office is located. So you can come into our office every day from Monday, or not every day, every weekday from Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're available in the office, so you can come in and have a one-on-one discussion, or talks with us. We are available. The office is open for everybody. All right.